Welcome to the Taxmen, a true detective podcast. Joining me is my brother, Drew Dar.
Hey, hey.
Very prompt on that intro, Drew. I like it. So, this is our first episode in our new True Detective podcast. Thanks if you're joining us from the Game of Thrones days, where we just wrapped up our first season as the Watchers of the Wall podcast. And now we are on to the second part of HBO's Summer of Fun, True Detective.
Yep, looking forward to it.
There was a lot of fun this week, a lot of bonding father-son style, old friendships that are just being renewed over a tall bottle of scotch and some cash payments.
Yeah.
The smile never left my face. That's all I have to say.
Which is weird, because this is probably one of the darkest, most depressing shows I have ever seen in this first episode.
Yeah, I didn't really smile much.
Yeah.
Other than when Colin Farrell was threatening 12-year-olds. Now that
was ridiculous.
Brought a smile to my face.
It's like one of those things like every father probably fantasizes about doing, like threatening the children that threaten his children. But like everyone has the social decency to realize they're children and to not say anything like that.
Which is why I respect him for not physically assaulting the child.
Oh, you don't respect him?
No, I don't respect him. He's so let's jump right into our characters. It seems like we're going there. Let's start off with Ray. Colin Farrell.
Detective Velcoro,
Detective Velcoro. I'm gonna just call him Detective Velcro. I'm not gonna do that. Man, he is bat crazy.
Yeah, he is dark. He is in a bad, dark place. It was interesting that they started Velcoro in a room talking about like his past and stuff. It's almost like a nod back to season 1, where he's sort of talking with the
getting interviewed by the detectives.
No.
I'm talking about from True Detective season 1 is what you're referring to.
Oh yeah.
Which is totally what I like. I was like, oh, are we gonna have sit downs in this whole season as well? Which I was game for.
Yeah, I was like, is that going to be part of the structural continuity between the seasons? But it wasn't. It was just a scene. But I think it was a nice nod.
And they do a flashback, too, right there, which is a total throw to the first season of True Detective as well. But I don't want to spend too much time comparing the two, because this is a completely different series in all but name.
Yeah, it's just hard. I mean, everyone seems to, on the internet, be saying the same thing, right? Like, it's unfair to compare the two, and it's unfair to compare the two pilots. But they set themselves up for this comparison by not just labeling these as miniseries with, like, completely separate titles and names and casts and everything. So, I mean, we shouldn't, but I'm going to, probably.
Well, I felt like that. We will. We should try to condense that for one moment where we just both spill our comparisons. But visually, that was the most in line with the first season.
For sure.
And they got it out of the way almost immediately. So what'd you think of young Ray? He seemed decidedly less mentally ill.
Well, I don't know if Velcoro is ill, per se. I just think he's, like, severely depressed. But, I don't know. The son, I mean, he says, 2 words? I mean, I feel bad for him, because he has, like, a lunatic, drunken father, and only sees him once every 2 weeks, and then we don't see anything of his other... Except they seem, like, the other stepdad seems more emotionally stable.
Yeah, and I was talking about the flashback to... the bar, when he's talking with the detective, Ray has that flashback to sitting or going and meeting up with Frank, Vince Vaughn's character.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a pretty interesting scene to start with, because he definitely has far less of a stubborn mustache grown in. He looks like he's a little fresh on the force. Just had his wife go through a pretty serious assault. Definitely a completely different character from who we are looking at in that lawyer's office. Who's sliding stacks of cash across the table to make things happen.
It's not that kind of office.
Yeah.
Well, you like paying taxes? Oh man,
I love that line.
That was a great line. And
I'm glad taxes are going to be playing a big part of this series as well.
Gosh. Yeah, because everyone loves talking about taxes.
Everybody loves talking about taxes. This is the Taxmen podcast. Might as well call us the IRS. Because we're going to be getting into taxes later this podcast. Oh my. Hold your breath.
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
No, hold it. So you see Colin Farrell go in. He gets the identity of the man who allegedly raped his wife, and from the extra information we get in that lawyer scene, it seems pretty clear to me that Colin Farrell's son is not Colin Farrell's son.
Yeah, I think that is like a definite nod, and starts the trend of like sexually inadequate men that only like picks up steam as we get further into the episode. But yeah, he seems like unable to deliver. They were trying, then this assault happens. Thank goodness they didn't like show anything. Goodness.
Yeah.
And then and so his son, who he takes as his own, which is noble, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It is.
It is. Yeah, it is. If he wasn't such a jerk, I'd feel better.
If he wasn't publicly humiliating him.
Yeah, that was horrible.
Oh man, that was so rough. Talk about on Father's Day. Tough scene.
Yeah, it was fathers on Father's Day. We got everyone's father pretty much.
Yeah, there was the dads were we got to meet everyone's dad, so got that out of the way. I'm glad. So Ray, I seems like we're gonna be unpacking a lot of his trauma this season. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's definitely not his kid. He refused to do a paternity test. Doesn't want to know the truth.
Yeah.
So
he seems like the central. I mean, I know it's an ensemble cast, but he seems like the Matthew McConaughey of the group. And it's hard.
I don't necessarily think there's going to be one. It seemed to me like they unbundled the Russ Cole aspects of personality into a few different characters.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We
characters.
Spent so much time, and maybe this was just a Velcoro-centric episode, but we spent a lot of time with Colin Farrell's character.
Yeah, well, he's the lead detective on the case, so I have a feeling he'll be the de facto lead in this series.
Yeah, I think you're pretty spot
on. But it's hard to talk about him without talking about Vince Vaughn's character, Frank.
Yeah, Semyon. Does Frank ever get dropped, or is he just called Semyon in the pilot?
I think it's mainly just Semyon.
Yeah, I think so too. But yeah, and we don't know a whole lot about him except that he's super shady.
Yeah, I felt like I picked up a lot about him right from the get-go. I mean, you got the flashback with Ray, which kind of immediately aligns Semyon with the dark side of this city's going-ons. You know, he slides over this guy's identity. He gives up that information really quickly, no pressure at all. Says he wants to give it up, makes the guy out to be some kind of junkie. I mean, Vince Vaughn, he's got a face and a way of talking that makes you trust him. Mm-hmm. But I've seen this act before, and it seems to me like this guy, I mean, he was definitely working for the dark side of the, not the law, dark side of the ongoings in Vincy County, and town of Vincy, and I'm not sure I trust his intentions with handing over this other criminal's mug. Yeah,
no, and I can only imagine that's going to get complicated later on in the season. But yeah, I mean, Semyon gets his pocket cop. He pockets a cop, and now he can use him for whatever shenanigans he needs to do. And it's clear in the present time that their relationship is ongoing, and maybe even somewhat personal at this point. Like, they've done so much work together that they have like a mutual respect for each other.
Yeah, Ray's clearly not hurting for cash.
No.
And I have a feeling that's because Semyon's lining his pockets. So,
yeah. Well, yeah, he's beating up writers, newspaper writers, and he is...
Which I love the meta story they set up. An 8-part miniseries on corruption in their city.
Oh, I totally missed that. That's a good point.
Oh yeah. We got eight episodes again this season.
Uh-huh.
So I love that scene from the get-go, setting up the very meta 8 episodes, and then immediately afterwards, Simeon says, "This place is built on a codependency of interests," and I love that because it's an ensemble cast. It's clearly all these characters seem very unrelated at the beginning, but by the end of the episode, we've got 3 of the 4 main characters in frame right before the credits roll.
Yeah, and almost like a superhero shot where they just like pan across.
A superhero shot, or just, I mean, they loved the long overhead shots.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We need to talk about that.
And I really liked them a lot. I thought it was really beautifully shot in what they're going for, which seems to be the intersection of infrastructure, transportation, and the beauty of California, the natural beauty of it, and then
not even the natural beauty, like the urbanization of California.
Yeah, well, it's the infrastructure that overlays this natural beauty and convenes you from one point in the Golden Coast to the other.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I mean, in the original True Detective, and I guess this would be a good time as Eddie to say that, like, structurally, this is going to be very different than the first one in the fact that we don't have a single director directing every single episode.
Yeah.
Which will be really interesting as we get along. And it seemed like he was trying to replicate the directing style of... Do you know how to pronounce his last name?
Fukunaga?
Yeah, that guy. In those overhead shots. Except instead of, like, the bayous and the forests and the wildlife, instead we get, like, the urbanization and these super dark shots of, like, factories and highways.
Yeah, that was really prominent visually, the different darker shots of the city kind of churning.
Oh yeah, almost like film noir-esque.
Yeah, there's a lot of noir elements in it, which I want to get to when we're talking more about the land use elements of this story. So we get to meet Simeon. He immediately starts talking about these plans he's got brewing, and then we head out from his offices over to meet Annie, played by Rachel McAdams. We're not even going to attempt her last name.
Bezaritas?
Yeah, too many Z's, B's. I don't want to even go there.
Yeah. And her real name is it's not Aphrodite, but Diana maybe, or something. That's how her father referred to her as. It's like some sort of Greek god. I need to look that up again.
Yeah, he named his web performing daughter after the goddess of love, it seems like.
Yeah, unless that's a nickname, but yeah.
Yeah, I thought I assumed those are nicknames and thus paid little attention to them. But I laughed at the first shot of this scene just because it looked like Annie had taken a few loans out from Russ Cole's library. A lot of dark literature on her desk.
Yeah, the literature and the firearm. Well, not knives instead of firearms.
Yeah, you got knives and maybe some Far Eastern philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
Some just books on throwing knives, I guess. That seems to be her calling card. Close combat.
Yeah.
She's ready for it.
Yeah, singularly focused, like Cole. See, look at you. You're making comparisons.
Well, yeah, but that joke wrote itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's inevitable, isn't it? We'll fight it as hard as we can. But
yeah,
it's just going to seep
doesn't
up.
make sense to do.
Only because True Detective Season 1 is an ingrained part of my personality at this point.
And I've got to admit, I am probably most excited, and we'll talk about some evaluations at the end of this, but I'm probably most excited about Rachel McAdams' character. I think she is really interesting and completely fresh and new. There wasn't a great... I mean, you had Maggie Hart from the first season as like this mom, like wife character, but there was some flack.
She's definitely a mom and wife.
Yeah, but she was interesting. She was sort of like a pawn in the larger scheme of the game. Whereas Rachel McAdams seems really interesting and dynamic, and I love her as an actress. I think she's really excellent. So I think it'll be a really good episode, or a really good season for her character. I'm really excited about where she's going.
Yeah, actually, I would have to say I was the least excited about Annie's character. I found her completely humorless to the point of...
They were all humorless.
They were all humorless, but at least...
No, there was... And that's going to be part of my big issue with this, is like, there was like no levity.
Yeah, it felt like The Leftovers at some points.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
A vacuum of humor. Or happiness.
I wanted Marlon Hart back so badly.
Yeah, that's a all cap note I wrote is they're really missing that complete, it's not that like Marty was a moron necessarily.
No, he was the viewer. He was a viewer.
Yeah.
Who is Rust? And
what are you saying? And instead of getting him listening to these like random spewings of like BS from Annie's father, who's just some kind of Ginsberg quoting shaman, with, like he looked like Jeff Bridges let himself go.
Yes, that is exactly correct.
And I needed someone to laugh at him and just be like, shut the hell up, old man.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I needed someone to crack a joke about something.
Yeah.
Because it is a little hard. I mean, I'm very interested. All four of our main cast members are pretty dark and humorless. I'm interested to see if that's going to be the serious tone of the whole season. I think it is. I
mean, Vince Vaughn is he's gonna squeeze in some moments of life. He can't help but do it.
I hope so. I will say, and we were talking about Simeon a second ago, I will say I was very impressed with Vince Vaughn playing against type in almost every way, shape, and form, which I really like.
He's such a great actor, and he's been filling roles like The Internship here for a decade plus.
Yeah.
But I mean, Swingers is an all-time classic. He owns that movie. I don't know if you've ever seen it, Drew.
I haven't, no.
It's so great. Young Vince Vaughn, living out in Vegas with a bunch of his friends. It's got its dark moments. He's so good in it. He's a great actor. He's got a lot of range. He can make so much money. He can make so much money just being a goofy frat boy.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn plays Vince Vaughn all the time. I mean, the same Vince Vaughn that we see on Jimmy Fallon is usually the same one we go to see in the movies. So I really liked that he is playing against type in this, and I think he's owning that role. I think he has the gravitas that you would need from this gangster overlord, made man type deal. I was buying into it. I thought it was cool.
Absolutely. His lines had the most life, and he really seemed to steal the show. I mean, when he, for the second time, mentions, I think I should have sprung for the country club. Mm-hmm. He just has this like nervous look on his face. I mean, that one expression is just, it's great. It totally is painting this picture of a character that I'm really the most fascinated by, because he seems to be standing on shaky grounds, but he's got the confidence of a true con man, and I'm loving the duality of it. Because the other three characters, I have yet to see them spread beyond the initial blots of their character.
Yeah, and we haven't talked about Woodrow yet, and maybe that's on purpose. But what do you think about our fourth protagonist?
Well, he needs to loosen up. He needs to have Kitch needs to have a sit down with another Kitch character, Old Riggins.
Yeah.
Sling back a Dixie, and let his boy Woodrow know it's all going to be all right. I mean, when he's doing the suicidal motorcycle tendencies, I can buy it. But Riggins was such a strong character because he knew how to kick back when the moment let room for it. But Woodrow is just, I mean, he's heading in the door, going straight to the bathroom, popping pills, taking care of business, going out to go on a death ride, and maybe discover a body or two.
Yeah, and I don't know, man. It's tough. I mean, okay, so it's the first episode, so obviously I'm going to give this episode a lot of room, and it's True Detective, so I implicitly trust it.
Yes.
But we get almost no background on Woodrow at all. Like, I have no reason to care for him, pretty much.
I mean, you maybe you'll think about his scars for a few minutes. But
yeah.
It seemed pretty obvious that it was a motorcycle accident.
I was thinking like he was a serviceman, but I'm not sure.
I mean, it looks like he crashed on his motorcycle.
Maybe that's it.
Yeah. See, I had a coworker who got clipped on the interstate, and he had similar scarring on his shins and on his back. So who knows? One shoulder could have bit the pavement. She said his lady who was, brushing over those wounds mentioned some kind of iron accident, but who knows? Well, I'm sure we'll find that as the character develops.
Yeah, we certainly will. It just felt like we spent the least amount of time with Woodrow, and...
But speaking of Woodrow, I do want to ask, and it actually was funny, so maybe we discredit because his character never smiled, but the cutaway from him being offered sexual favors and then cutting right to the sheriff's office did make me chuckle. I love that, especially because they immediately bring up solicitations for a blowjob. Yeah, I thought that was funny. I
watched it twice, and neither time did I have a smile on my face. And maybe it's just because the tone was the same, like the consistency of the dark tone was consistent throughout the entire episode. But I mean, I was more like upset, like he turned her down, and then she, I'm assuming, went around and called the police station and yelled at them for whatever, and that's how she got out of the ticket.
Yeah, I'm assuming she's a moderately famous person.
Yeah,
he turned down her solicitation, gave her a ticket, and then she turned around and accused him of soliciting.
Right.
Just what she was offering. But I don't know. I thought it was pretty funny. I like to think that he did it, but I know he didn't.
No, he definitely.
I know his characters.
I think that was defining his character, right? Because he wouldn't do anything to... It seems like he wouldn't do anything to compromise his job, which seems to be the only sense of pleasure that he derives in life.
Yeah. Yeah, that's about his... That could define his character arc to this point.
Yeah.
It seems that his only source of pleasure is riding his motorcycle at 60 miles per hour or faster.
Yeah.
Preferably double.
So, and I think that brings up a good point. I don't know if you want to start evaluating it or whatever, but one of the issues I had with this is that I found the characterization to be pretty traditional across the board. I don't know. What'd you think? I mean, we have one, like the super corrupt cop who's just trying to do good, but in his own super messed up way. We've got like the city kid who made it from the slums into like wealth and prestige, who's doing his own thing. Woodrow, like a man with a death wish, and then Annie, the most manly, masculine character in the show that like is too hardcore for even men. I don't know. They all fit so nicely into these types. Whereas I love and I know it's it's stupid. Like it's an impossible bar to like reach the original season. But you have these such dynamic, multifaceted characters. I don't know. What'd you think? What'd you think about the characterization in episode? And I'm even just saying like, pilot to pilot, episode 1 to episode 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that's fair, but. So what this episode mainly was missing was that like ridiculous dialogue from and not ridiculous, like all very philosophically based, theologically based musings by Russ Cole. But that is like when I watched this show the first time, I was losing my mind. I was laughing so hard.
Well, yeah, because Woody Harrelson kills it.
Woody Harrelson like perfectly parlays those lines that are so dark, but also just seems like a philosophy major who smoked a little too much pot, and he's sort of having a dark moment next to you in the car.
Yeah.
And then that cracked me up. It was so funny, especially coming out of that character's mouth. But
yeah, I mean, same thing in Breaking Bad, right? You have this super serious Walter White who like sometimes waxes a little poetically, and then you've got Jesse who just like doesn't take anything seriously. It's that balance that works so well.
It's true. So it seems that the show is going to have to find that balance in Farrell, or in Simeon and Velcoro, because Vince Vaughn is the only one who's going to be able to play off this darkness in any kind of way. Unless
someone else But
they're bouncing off.
New.
They're about. I cannot see anything coming from Annie or Woodrow. I feel like you've got Vaughn left with the task of bouncing jests off of Farrell emptying a bottle of scotch, which was another moment I laughed, was him just refusing to savor the scotch in anything less than one large gulp at a time.
Yeah. And you know what? That's maybe fair. Like maybe the humor is there, and I'm just missing it because the Scotch remark came when there was a woman singing in a bar about how depressing her life was as they montage.
That was such a sad bar song, but I would have loved to see that girl perform at my bar.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, she was great, but I mean, you had the super depressing montage to the world's most depressing song about all of these depressing, emasculated characters. It was crazy. It was a bit on the head.
It really was. It really was. I mean, they're going for that darkness. It's really bleak, and it's like, I'm guessing we're gonna get the philosophy from our free love shaman, who wants us to contemplate living in a meaningless universe that God created with meaning.
Yeah, although I can't imagine he's going to be around that much, but who knows?
I don't know. I hope they incorporate it in some respect, because we're trading in these Cajun folklore, demonic cults for really strange sexuality.
Yeah.
So that's going to be weird to see how deep they go with that, because I think that everyone really did enjoy the meanderings, even though they never played into the conclusion of the series in a major sense. It was addressing that I loved, and I know a lot of people really loved.
Well, yeah,
it's auxiliary enchantment.
Instead, you get Velcoro's crass urban poetry.
Speaking of poetry, I want to take a moment to read this document I found. Called The Western Book of the Dead. Did you have a chance to open that link?
Yeah, I opened it for like half a second. I was like, oh my gosh, where's this going?
This seems like the ideology of the entire series. Certainly this season. And it relates to Cole's musings. So let me read an excerpt from The Western Book of the Dead, which was the namesake of this episode. It was published by, it's like credited to a yogi.
And it was the title. Wait, how is it related to True Detective?
It was the title of the episode.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, so the episode is titled The Western Book of the Dead. I was like, oh, it's probably a real text. And I looked, and there seems to be no major work under this name. And I saw this PDF, and I thought it was just a summary of the book, but it seems to me that this 4-page document is actually the entire book.
Weird.
So I'm going to just read the first chapter, because it sort of sums up the rest of the themes from the book. In the beginning, i.e. before the beginning, there was nothing. And matter came out of nothing. And matter was chaos.
It's so weird. It is so strange.
I'm going to read chapter 2. Strangely, and for no reason whatsoever, chaos started to change. Simplicity begat complexity. Randomness begat order. Most peculiar of all, inanimate matter begat organic matter. So, The second chapter sort of fascinates me. I think these are going to be themes that we see again in this season a lot. In the chaos of meaninglessness that this show seems to be exploring, and in the begatting matter. Because it seems like the long play for this season is going to be the land that they're developing in this town of Vinci, which I love that they named after Vince Vaughn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that, but that's a good point. There's also another thing that we haven't talked about yet, which is there's another party at play here. I think that we haven't even been introduced yet, unless it's the Russians, which is who killed this guy.
That is who that killed it. Was that a Russian jumpsuit I saw?
I mean, it might be the Russians playing against Semyon, which is another trope, which is kind of obnoxious, but. The other option is that it's a third party that we don't even know yet.
Well, I'm not necessarily sure. I don't like things because they're tropes. In the realm of detective storytelling, and specifically noir detective storytelling, which took place largely in California, in the West.
Yeah, sure.
Tropes are very heavy, and I don't necessarily think that season 1 deviated from tropes that entirely. In fact, I think that True Detective, it was a detective story, and a traditional detective story in a lot of ways. Now they dressed it up with a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah, except it deviated in almost like every major facet. Structurally, it was non-linear. It takes place in like 2, maybe even 3 timelines. You have characters that are not sort of like these realistic I don't know, man. I almost disagree with you on every fundamental level, which is fine.
No, that's okay. The way they tell the story is different, but the way they go about building out these characters is fundamentally understanding the rules of a detective story, and then playing with it and deviating it in ways that were incredibly interesting as a viewer.
Yeah.
But also fulfilling as a detective. I loved the elements of them, going into in bed with the cultish side and the dark side of their world, operating largely in the dark. Although they did a great job of using the light of day too, which like totally undermines the noir elements of it. So I guess there was a lot of subversion, whereas so far we're getting more of a straight noir tale set up here.
Yeah, I mean, almost completely. It's sort of like a noir detective tale mixed with like a little bit of like a gangster background. I mean, Semyon feels very like American Gangster-esque.
In a way, for sure, but he kind of honors he's kind of honoring a long-held tradition in noir films and films that play this element, which is the use of land. And I thought that it was really interesting, his line about he's like, man, this is our chance to get in on old money. Get this land. This is land. This is wealth forever. So much money that your kids won't even bother to figure out where it's coming from. And that's a really popular trope. If you've ever seen, have you seen Chinatown before?
I don't even know if I have.
Oh, classic. It came out in 1970. It's by, not by, I don't know who directed it, but it stars Jack Nicholson. Very handsome Jack Nicholson, although he spends half of his movie with his nose wrapped up. He gets it broken pretty bad. But that's a whole movie that's based a lot around the planning of land, and specifically the allocation of resources and the interplay of the public and the government, and who's negotiating these trade-offs and deals, right? And that's clearly what they're setting up here. I'm really interested to see how they expand this underbelly, which will seem to go pretty deep with our boy Casper already losing his eyes from an acid attack.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely.
And not the trippy LSD kind of acid. Looked like
hydrochloric.
Hydrochloric
burned it
type
from the inside. I think. It's
Oh,
pretty
Lord.
gross.
What, they fill his mouth with some Hydro and hold him upside down?
I would assume they filled his eyes full of it and then just
Ate it out? Oh, well, that's pleasant.
I mean, I don't know. You don't get details, but yeah. Anyway,
even Who Framed Roger Rabbit is all about highways and laying out infrastructure and plotting land.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see if they try to subvert this genre trope, how it's manipulated. It'll be pretty cool. I mean, it's episode 1, like you've mentioned a lot of times, so we could be in for a fake out.
yeah, and I pretty much at this point expect it, at least in some aspects. Like, you even have like the Faustian elements of Semyon sort of getting Velcoro to make that pact. Like, what do I have to trade you for this information? He's like, oh, absolutely nothing. Your entire life. So they're in this like super dark bar where there only is like the red neon in the background. I mean, it's totally like a deal with a double type deal. But I expect some subversion to be happening at various points. I mean, I'm in it for, heck, we're starting the podcast on this, so I'm in it for the long haul.
Oh yeah,
and I can't wait to see what happens.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we're gonna love every moment of it.
No, just like we didn't love every moment of season 5 of Game of Thrones. But
of course,
man, when it was on, it was on.
Oh,
and I'm sure this will get on.
Yeah, well, it's gonna be especially bumpy these first couple of episodes for them, just because of it's gonna be so hard. We have no reference point other than the first season to kind of discuss this.
Yeah, and let's not forget,
stories.
like, True Detective hardly hit the ground running.
Oh, it didn't hit the ground running in a popularity standpoint, but it hit the ground running in terms of being so interesting and so good.
Yeah, but I think even like from a pacing standpoint, like it really wasn't until episode 3 and 4, and then every episode from there on out, where I was like, I had to like, it compelled me to watch. I needed to see what was going to happen.
Yeah, it definitely got more and more engrossing and encompassing as the popular attention grew and just your own personal investment in the narrative grew.
Well, and the narrative picked up steam. Like, let's not forget, the first 3 episodes are basically them just canvassing neighborhoods and interviewing people, with some marital drama interspliced in between.
Oh yeah, but they immediately throw in those like cultish elements that are incredibly interesting. For just dreaming about what kind of dark fortunes await our characters. So, the dark fortunes in this episode, or at least the main like symbolism that was consistent and seems like it'll be really prominent, is sex. Sex problems. That's just gonna be a big part of this season apparently. Between our boy Woodrow having to pop Viagra, Rachel or Annie seemed to be going into. She seemed to have violated her man friend in some way.
Yeah, maybe probably with a knife. I'm guessing.
Maybe with a knife. Yeah,
There's so many knives in that apartment.
I was thinking a more masculine show of force on her part.
Yeah,
that could have freaked him out in a similar vein. So I'm excited to uncover what her strange fetish is, and
yeah,
and more so Casper's, and maybe Annie's sister will play a little bit more than we might think from her initial scene.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't imagine they'd introduce her character just to drop it. And let's not forget Velcoro and his wife's assault that predates the episode is hugely fundamental as well. So
yeah,
and even Semyon is doing like what, some type of crazy expensive in vitro treatment to have a baby.
Yeah, he mentions that they're trying. I didn't pick up on the details because I don't know about that kind of stuff. But Drew, weigh in. You're gonna be a father more, sooner than I am.
Someday, yeah. Yeah, I mean, in vitro is like what, $10,000 to $30,000 to $50,000, and it basically is where you. I mean, I'm not going to explain the 411 on it, but it's really expensive, and it basically helps with infertility.
Yeah. Looks like they're a little late in life to be thinking family, but then you get
except he brought it up like 3 times. we're doing this for our family. We want this legacy for our kids.
Well, he needs to have kids for the legacy.
Absolutely, right? So I think that'll come up again and again. And he constantly was talking with Velcoro about his family.
Oh man, I love Semyon's performance so much, just because he seems so in over his head in that. Whereas usually you see Vince Vaughn, he's a confidence man. He can make you buy into anything. But boy, he seems to be punching above his weight in a big way. You know, he's now having kids like maybe 10 years too late, and he just kind of got this. It seems like he just kind of got this land use opportunity. He's like, man, I gotta start thinking about my future. He just seemed to have hustled his way along life for so long that he never even thought 30 years down the line. And now he's sort of looking around now that he's at the top, and maybe he's ready to deal with the Russian mob, maybe not.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? I didn't even think about that. But yeah, he did seem a little paranoid, even though he shows this outward sense of extreme confidence, right? He did seem a little paranoid about, I liked that metaphor, fighting above his weight class, right? And that might be what the murder implies.
It's gonna be very interesting to see who Colin Farrell murders next. Did he murder that reporter or just rough him up?
No, he just punched him a few times.
Yeah, I'm glad they got that scene out of the way from the get go, so I don't have to wonder who's gonna be the beanied man.
Yeah, that was a cool moment. One of the few daytime shots.
Yeah, we got some light. And there was a lot. Yeah, so I almost made another season 1 comparison, but I definitely think that it looks like Velcoro and Semyon are going to continue to have a really interesting interplay. So that's definitely what I got my sights on. I honestly am not that excited to see where Annie's plotline goes, but she also seems to have the most seeds planted for importance later between her dad, possibly her dad, and definitely her sister.
Yeah, I mean, we disagree on this, but that's okay. Like, I'm really excited about her plotline, and I think we can both agree that I couldn't care less about Woodrow at this point.
I watched every season of Friday Night Lights on NBC, so thus I'm implicitly married to wishing Taylor Kitsch nothing but the best and believing all the greatest. But, that
was a flat character.
Not a lot, yeah.
But
Woodrow is a flat circle. Character circle.
Oh man. Yeah.
Any closing remarks? Did we miss anything?
I mean, I think we covered the main things, right? I mean, obviously the murder is what binds everyone together. I think you're overestimating the Von Farrell or Velcoro Semyon thing. I think it's going to be Velcoro with Annie and Woodrow. That's going to be the main dynamic. I mean, they're the three guys in that final shot, so...
Well, I think they're going to be pursuing a lot of different elements to this Casper shakedown. Mm-hmm. That's going to turn out a lot of unflattering facts to Frank Semyon's character.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So
Velcoro's, honestly.
And Velcoro, and yeah, of course, they're totally intermingled as a character. So I'm excited to see. I think the opening up. I'm glad Casper is dead, and now we can just dig into Casper's grave and see what secrets he brought with him.
Yeah, he didn't seem to do a good job of hiding what those secrets might be.
Well, I mean, he was not ashamed of his sex fetish. That's for sure. All of them. All the dozens of fetishes he had.
All of them. Yes.
I'm really excited to see the sexy-legged dildo statue make its way into the HBO store. That's going to be some really choice memorabilia.
Buy it now for $45.99.
Yeah, pre-orders. Bronze cast. All right, well, on that note, is there any closing words, Drew?
Yeah, that was it, man. I'm looking forward to the next one. I am praying for levity, although not expecting it. But I am interested in sort of where these characters are going to go. And I am interested in our lovely writer subverting some of the numerous tropes that he has in play at this point and sort of defying some expectations. Which I think he will. I have confidence in Nick.
We'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot these next 60 minutes. And if you're a big fan of HBO's other original series that premiered last night, there was actually 2 of them, Between the Brink and Ballers. We got a episode of Ballers on Ballers we're recording later tonight, recapping Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's new hit drama. So anyways, we'll see you next week.
Oh, and we should do another plug for our final episode of Game of Thrones, if you haven't watched it already.
Listen.
Where we recap the whole season, and we actually have our brother on.
The third Dar brother.
So the third Dar brother makes an appearance, and it's super. I mean, if you want levity after True Detective, like, it's literally us cracking jokes for an hour and a half about Game of Thrones and all the absurdity and the depressingness and the lovely moments of that incredible season.
Do you want to find out who won the People's Choice Awards in Westeros?
You do.
What about the horniest man in Westeros? You can learn all of these winners and more. And that's actually going to be going up tomorrow too. So it's going to be a big day for our podcast. 3 podcasts coming out tomorrow, which would be today if you're listening to this and not us.
And if you're tired of subscribing to so many podcast feeds and you want to simplify it, within the next week or 2, we're going to be putting together our little podcast publishing house and make like a
one-stop shop. A
one-stop shop on YouTube and on the App Store, or I guess
iTunes podcast,
iTunes Music Store, where you can just anything we produce between the Dar brothers and our friends and cohorts, you can pick it up. So we'll announce what that is next episode, but should be coming soon. So look forward to that.
Yeah, exciting. Thanks for listening. If you made it this far, please let us know your opinion in the YouTube comments, or if you have an opinion and you want to leave it on the Apple Store, that's awesome too.
Always love those 5-star ratings. That's how we get.
Hey, I take the 4 stars too.
Yeah,
I'm not
4
picky.
or 5.
I'm not picky, all you 4 stars.
Anything that gives us increased visibility.
If you got 3 stars, take a hike. Get out of here. All right. With that, I'm gonna take a hike to my kitchen and make some dinner. All right. Night, Dre.